The 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska. This is the REPORT Husker Show.
Hi everyone, Bill Rentschler in the 1011 Now streaming studio for another edition of the REPORT Husker Show, joined as always by Sports Director Kevin Sjuts. Kevin, we last spoke, it was 2 weeks ago today. Since then, both men and women basketball programs have had a pretty good run. Huskers women going 3-1 and the men going 3-0. They've won 4 in a row, and both squads poised, I think, for a run in the postseason.
Yeah, March is going to be fun.
Yeah, it will be.
Both teams should make the NCAA tournament. It looks like the women are securely in, and I think after Nebraska's Fred Hoiberg's team over the past week, they pretty much have put themselves in that situation as well. Winning at Indiana during the midweek was huge, and then protecting home court again. 17th victory at Pinnacle Bank Arena this year, which is a new high for the program inside PBA. And in fact, it ties the most home wins in Division I men's basketball this year.
And I think I saw a blurb come out yesterday after their win that 4 conference games in a row with a 15-point margin of victory. First time that's happened since 1911, 1912 when they were in the Missouri Valley.
Thanks for watching the news last night, because that was included in the report following our highlights.
That's anytime you can break a record that's over 100 years old, kind of like the temperature today. It's pretty impressive.
There's a lot of records being broken or nearing with this year's team at 20 wins, and there's still 2 weeks left in the regular season. I think that's a fantastic spot to be in. So the discussions around Nebraska basketball right now are, one, are they going to make the NCAA tournament? I can confidently say yes. In fact, as of today, Monday, following the Minnesota game, of the 100 bracket projections out on the internet, they're in all 100 of them. Mm-hmm. So Nebraska's going to make the tournament. What does it mean for the Big Ten tournament? And they're fighting for a double bye. They're in a spot that they will not play on the opening day. Even if they lose their 3 remaining games on the schedule, they would still be out of the Wednesday games. So the lowest they could finish is 10th. So they could be anywhere from 3 to 10th, which is wild. And of the teams in that large swath of Big Ten standings, Nebraska has the easiest schedule ahead. At Ohio State this week, then next week, Rutgers and Michigan to close the regular season. And I think every other team in the conference would love to have that slate. It's what's in front of Nebraska. So there's a realistic possibility that Nebraska runs the win total to 22 or 23 games. And this is by far the most successful season under Fred Hoiberg. And now let's see what this translates into in terms of the postseason. So Nebraska fighting for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. Double bye goes to the top 4 teams. And then is Nebraska going to be ranked? What does it mean for, I guess, national recognition? We see the numbers continue to rise in the net, in the KenPom, and then today they receive votes in the AP poll.
Yeah, and so that's where we wanted to get to next. You are a AP Top 25 voter, something that you take very seriously, and today, with the poll that was released, Nebraska's not ranked, but they are in the receiving votes, and you were one of those votes. Can you kind of take us through your decision to put them in there?
I have them at number 25, and leaving Pinnacle Bank Arena last night, I was fairly confident that I was going to put them in the poll. And we've talked before, Bill, that I've even wondered, I think Nebraska could be a ranked team. You know, after they beat Purdue, after they beat Wisconsin, you know, there were elements of their game which make them look like a top 25 worthy team. And as I shared with you and our listeners and viewers before, one of the things I do in filling out the ballot, and I've constantly said that the last 5 spots are some of the hardest spots because I think it's kind of interchangeable. Between 20 and 30 teams in that discussion, there's not a whole lot of separation. I always try to evaluate not so much on the metrics, not so much on the record, but more just having studied college basketball throughout the year. If they were to play each other, who do I think would be the better team? So as I evaluated Nebraska last night, filling out the AP Top 25, I'm looking at Nebraska against teams like Florida, Colorado State, BYU, Utah State, though I think Utah State's a little bit further advanced. There's a number of teams, Grand Canyon, South Florida. I think Texas Tech, these are all the teams that I had on my spreadsheet, and I'm evaluating, you know, like the numbers, and then ultimately I just try to sit down. If they play each other, who wins? Nebraska right now, as of December 26th, if they're on the court on February 26th against those teams, I think Nebraska beats a number of them. And that's where I could confidently put them in. They're on 5 ballots. They are others receiving votes with 7 points. That doesn't mean they were on 7 ballots. There were 2 ballots in which Nebraska placed 24th. And I'm not going to lie, I had them on the 24 line at one point, but then I decided to move a team ahead of Nebraska. But I think that they're in that discussion. As of today, KenPom, they're 34. Net ranking, they're 41.
And so, like you said at the very top, this all sets up for a very exciting March, which again, if you go back to this time last year, it's just a much different story. Pinnacle Bank was full Sunday evening. It's just a super exciting atmosphere, and the fans responding to Fred Hoiberg's team, which, as I watched the broadcast, one thing I hadn't really realized recently, that as fun as the offense has been, it's been the defense that's really kind of been helping carry the team the last couple of weeks.
The defense has been good. The effort has been fantastic ever since Fred Hoiberg had that moment after the Maryland game when Nebraska played very poorly at College Park. Fred said he crumpled up the practice plan, which was given to him from like the team training perspective of load management, and he said, the heck with that, we're going to get after them. And they had 3 grueling practices back to back to back. And ever since that moment, we've seen this team play with more of an edge. The toughness has increased, and I think that has translated into better performance in terms of rebounding and some of those effort and hustle plays. Nebraska's effort was outstanding on Sunday against Minnesota. Bill, one thing to continue the Nebraska discussion in terms of where they fall in terms of all the other teams kind of in the same area as them, is we know Nebraska can win at home. They're very good at home.
They're a top 15 team at home.
Getting the win in conference play on the road, and not just skating past, not just like getting past Indiana. No, they beat Indiana. And say what you want about where Indiana's at right now. They went on the road in a conference game, and they convincingly beat a blue blood program. So I think that alleviated Nebraska from that. Well, they only play well at home. It was such a big win, in my opinion, and that's where I think the possibilities really open up for Nebraska. So they have the road win, and then the stat that you just mentioned, the 15-plus win margin over the last 4 games, especially the way college basketball has been this year. You know, you're seeing a lot of teams. It doesn't matter if you're at the top of your conference or bottom of your conference. There are so many upsets, and so many teams are just winning at home. For instance, you know, Air Force goes on the road. Air Force is 8-17. They go into the pit at New Mexico, and they win on Saturday. So that's where, like, knowing that that's happening in a really good conference, and Nebraska is avoiding that in the Big Ten. Again, not saying Air Force is Indiana, but Air Force is a team that's not playing at the top of the conference, but can still win at any given moment. And Nebraska has avoided the bad loss. Because you've seen the graphic, right?
No quad 3, no quad 4 losses.
Where they put up the resume, and it shows the record, shows you the strength of schedule, shows you those quality wins, and then it shows you the bad losses. Everybody has them. Nebraska doesn't really have one.
Nope. Again, the one home loss is Creighton, which again is a top 15 team, just beat number 1 Connecticut last week. And then all the rest of your losses are in conference play, which again, Big Ten I think is the second best conference this year in basketball.
And the losses in conference play have come on the road. And there was a stat I saw over the weekend that home teams, their winning percentage, I don't even want to try to quote what it was because I don't remember, but it was so far ahead of the next conference in terms of the home team winning percentage because it listed the Big 10, the Big 12, the Big East, and the Mountain West. Home teams are winning, and in the Big 10, they are winning, if you know what I'm saying. It's just so hard to win on the road. So, you know, if you're going to say that Nebraska's bad losses are losses to Maryland on the road, I mean, that's against Jameer Young, one of the better players in the conference playing in his own venue. So it's been such a fun season. And to build on a point you made, Bill, about Pinnacle Bank Arena and how alive it's been, I had a conversation with a fellow media member yesterday. If you were to offer somebody just tickets. Like, you got 2 tickets. Do you want to go for the experience? Do you want to go to a Nebraska men's basketball game, a Nebraska volleyball game, or a Nebraska football game?
I'm going to say football's at the bottom of the list.
As of right now, I mean, it's hard to argue with volleyball because you're going to see an elite program and an elite environment in that sport. But PBA has just become awesome. Like an experience.
Yeah.
Not just go and you'll get to see a couple of good players from the – no, you're going to watch a good team, a well-coached team. And the place gets turned up, and it is fun.
And as just a quick sidebar, I really appreciated the Husker football team putting on the halftime show yesterday with their dunk contest, which I'm kind of surprised Matt Rule allowed.
Oh, well, they've done it before. They just haven't done it in front of 15,000 people. They had a dunk contest inside the Hendricks training facility.
Closed doors.
Closed doors, where it's just the football guys last year. Heinrich Harburg won it.
Yes.
And there was a plan for Nebraska football to do a dunk competition earlier this season. But like the day before, they postponed it, and no one really knew why. I don't know that I can share it publicly, so I won't. But now they're going to do it, last night.
Yeah.
And, man,
Jeremiah
I think
Charles.
there was a lot of trepidation about that happening ahead of time because one of the participants is Thomas Fedoni, and the concern just kind of writes itself. He's already had 2 major knee surgeries, and why is, this is – but they get out there, and that was unbelievably awesome. They introduced them one at a time. They come out bouncing the ball high to the sky. There were a lot of people who did not go to the concession stands at halftime.
Yeah, you don't want to miss
Where
that.
I saw some people that were going to, and then they did a 180 and they went back to their seats to watch it. And it was the best halftime show I can remember at Nebraska, outside of Red Panda.
Red Panda's elite.
In a long time.
Yeah.
And it went right up to the team coming back out. So they maximized every second, and it was good stuff. Trev Alberts was sitting courtside. Matt Rule was sitting courtside. Even got on the court as Emmett Johnson tried to dunk over him. Almost had it. But that was great. Harper Murray was out there. It was a show. It was cool. And Charles can jump out of the gym.
Yes, he can. He has some hops. And if I were Fred Hoiberg, I might talk to Coach Rule about maybe seeing if he can't. Maybe suit up for the Hoops team next year.
So do you remember when there were 2 Nebraska football players who played for the basketball team?
Who was it? Yes,
Noah Vedral.
And he was a lineman.
Brant Banks.
Yes, because they played in the Big Ten tournament.
They went to Indianapolis with a moment's notice. And
I do remember that.
I covered Noah Vedral playing high school basketball at Bishop Neumann, and he can hoop.
Yeah.
And a good basketball player. Even got some minutes in the Big Ten tournament. But I'm comparing apples to apples, I guess, because these guys can clearly play some basketball. Jeremiah Charles, he's just a freak athlete. And keep in mind this, too, about Jeremiah Charles. He had just competed at the Big Ten Indoor Track and Field Championships 2 days prior to, maybe a day prior to.
Busy man. A lot of busy guys on the football team between Nash and wrestling and all the other guys playing track and now the dunking contest. A lot of busy guys. But back to basketball here. So, again, 3 games left in the season, only 1 home game. So we're at Ohio State on Thursday, home against Rutgers on Sunday, and then at Michigan the following Sunday to finish the season. I'd have to think they're probably favored in all 3 of those games.
They are. If you look at the Ken Palm projections, the one game that should scare you a little bit is Ohio State. It's on the road, and ever since the dismissal of Chris Holtman, that Buckeyes team has played quite a bit better.
They beat Purdue.
And then they went on a buzzer beater on Sunday against Michigan State. So there's a couple of quad 1 wins instantly for Ohio State. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a tough game. And plus, Nebraska is, they're coming on this 4-game heater that they're on right now, and I'm excited for that. This is great. Nebraska, it's been 10 years since they made the NCAA tournament. And now that their in conversation is kind of resolved itself, now it's can they win in the NCAA tournament? And that's been the lifelong stigma of the program, is that they've never won a game in the NCAA tournament.
And
This team is capable.
Well, and maybe how far can they go in the Big Ten tournament too? I mean, if you got a double bye, can you make it to the quarters, to the semis? And they beat Purdue once this year. They took Illinois to overtime. They beat Northwestern. They beat Wisconsin. And you wouldn't want to play Purdue again, but they could make a run.
Historically, Nebraska's not very good
when
getting the double bye in the conference tournament. But again, I don't know that you can always rely on these anecdotes from years past because this team is so different. And Bill, if we really want to roll up our sleeves on this team and what makes them so good, you mentioned the rebounding and the effort plays and the defense, right? We've kind of documented those. I think the bigger element of their game is the balance of offensive distribution. You see so many different guys. They've had 7 different guys lead the team in scoring, maybe 8, throughout the course of this season. So at Indiana, it's Jamarcus Lawrence, who popped a career best and was just on fire. He went 5 for 5 from beyond the arc. And then on Sunday against Minnesota, it's Juwan Gary, career high, 22. And, K-State can have a quiet night, and they can still win convincingly.
Yeah. And CJ single-handedly kept him in the game against Wisconsin and brought him back. So it can be any one of those guys. Rink has been kind of quiet the last couple games, but, we've seen what he can do.
But all of those guys have the capability to carry the team offensively. You mentioned Rink. Bryce Williams needs to enter the chat. Josiah Alec has led the team in scoring. There was even one game Sam Hoiberg led the team in scoring.
So from the men to the women are having just as good of a season as the men right now. They are 19-9, 11-6. They are currently, again, in a spot for a double bye in the tournament. They are 4th. Again, when we last spoke, they had just beat Iowa. They had to go to Ohio State, ranked 2nd in the country. Ohio State kind of laid a little bit of a whooping on them there in Columbus. But since then have rattled off 3 straight. And they just have a couple games left before they get ready for the Big Ten tournament next week.
Yeah, that season, it finishes up sooner. They just had senior night, and Nebraska recognized their 4 outgoing players. A great ceremony for Jazz Shelley, her 2nd senior night. You can tell the season means a lot to Jazz. And they're around an 8-9 seed for the NCAA tournament. And, last year they did not make the big dance. They went to the Big Ten tournament knowing a win or 2 could possibly get them in. And they stumbled at the conference tourney. But I think it could be a different story this year just because, Alexis Markowski has improved quite a bit. Jazz Shelley's in her last ride with the Huskers. And this is a team that, when they are peaking, when they come in locked in, they're pretty good.
They beat Iowa. They're 28th right now in the net, and like you said, kind of right around 8-9 as a projected seed in the tournament. And so they have one more game at Illinois this Sunday to finish up the season in the Big Ten. First round is next Wednesday in Minneapolis. So
they will not play on Wednesday.
Will not play on Wednesday, so that'll be next Thursday.
Or Friday, depending upon double bye situation. But there are 3, which, by the way, the Big Ten women's basketball tournament is sold out.
Yeah.
For the first time in the event's history.
Yeah.
Obviously, Caitlin Clark is the big draw there, but also Indiana and Ohio State are both top 25 teams who have had fabulous seasons. And then don't discredit, the fact that, Nebraska, it's an easier trip, Minneapolis, as opposed to going to Chicago or Indianapolis. So Nebraska fans, they're going to travel. They're going to go to.
Yeah, top 3 in the Big Ten for women's basketball. Ohio State 24-3, Iowa 24-4, Indiana 22-4. That's pretty. That's some pretty good teams.
And I think you can confidently say, outside of those 3, the next best team is Nebraska. Yeah.
All right. So again, we'll obviously be excited to cover those teams over the next couple weeks as the season wraps up. Really quickly, we'll touch on baseball. They were down in Arizona this weekend against Grand Canyon. They managed to take 3 out of 4 against Grand Canyon. So their record now on the year 4-3. So the Huskers now travel to Charleston for a 4-game tilt against the College of Charleston.
Pretty good weekend for Will Bolt's team. He even said after the opening weekend the record wasn't really indicative of the team having 2 games that got away from them in the 9th inning down in
Dallas,
Arlington to start the season. So a nice bounce-back effort. I know things got a little chippy there between Nebraska and Grand Canyon. There were some.
They did. There were some words exchanged.
There was some celebration that the opposing teams took exception to, and I heard a lot of chatter about the play-by-play announcer on ESPN Plus. But at the end of the day, Nebraska gets some wins, and they're going to be home. Turn your head a couple times, and they're going to be playing at Haymarket Park.
I say it's not this coming Friday, but next Friday. And I looked at the long-range forecast for you, Kevin, and it looks like maybe low to mid-50s. Not going to be 80 or whatever it is today, but not bad for March baseball.
Well, I can have some peace that the weather's going to be okay. Northern Colorado is not on the schedule this year.
Yeah. It always seems like when they come to town.
If Northern Colorado is on the schedule at any point, you know the weather's going to drop down to a high of 37.
Yeah,
and they'll still play it.
That's not fun shooting baseball in 37-degree temperatures. The softball team, they were at the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic in California. They played a number of games, 5 games. They ended up going 2-3, dropping games against San Diego State, UCLA, and Utah, but blank Oregon and also beat Cal State Fullerton. Again, that's a team that, obviously with the injury to Jordy Ball, still trying to figure things out a little bit.
And they are home on Friday. Bowlin Stadium and its renovations, the expanded seating. Everybody gets a first look at that Friday at 5:30 in Lincoln, which should be a pretty nice day. That's going to be fun to see the team firsthand. Even though Jordy Ball is not playing, she will be with the team and will get recognized, along with all the other reserves on the team. So that'll give fans incentive to go. Plus, we know that ticket demand was higher than it's ever been. Thus, the expansion of Bowlin Stadium. And, you mentioned 2-3 over the weekend. It could have very well been 4-1 because on Friday, Nebraska suffered a pair of walk-off losses. That's just that's tough, including one of those games where Nebraska led by 4 runs in the 7th inning. That was against UCLA, which would have been a top 25 win.
Yeah, and then lost in 8 innings to San Diego State 3-2. So tough couple of games, but then bounced back going 2-1 over the next 3 games. Certainly after 2 walk-off losses in one day, you could see how things could get away from you there. But they did manage to bounce back a little bit.
They faced some really good opponents so far. So
UCLA, Oregon, and Utah all top 25
You'll
teams.
see Nebraska, once those wins start to pile up, that RPI is going to look pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's part of the aggressive scheduling from Rhonda Revelle and her staff.
And so then they'll have Wichita State and Missouri for the Big Red Invitational this weekend. Wrapping up Nebraska-related activities, the wrestling team finished their season. They traveled to Tempe, Arizona, out of conference, and won handily. They will have Big Ten championships starting not this weekend, but next weekend.
Ridge Levitt suffered his first loss on Sunday, so he was ranked number 1 at his weight division with an undefeated record. Lost a tough decision. Still, he's going to be one of the favorites to win a national championship as the focus now shifts to the postseason. Big Ten championships coming up. Is it in Maryland? Is that right?
College Park, Maryland.
Yeah. So those are rolling up here in the short term. Nash Hutmaker did not wrestle on Sunday.
Nope. Arizona
State forfeited the heavyweight spot. Nebraska already had the win. So Mark Manning's team is a top 5 program right now, and they've wrestled a very challenging schedule, and they come out of it with a pretty good record. And I think that everybody in the wrestling circles recognize how good Nebraska is. Silas Allred continues to wrestle really well, and he'll go for back-to-back Big Ten championships here in Big Ten's this week, next week.
Next week, March 9th and 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at their last 4 or 5 duels. I mean, Arizona State, 19th, Penn State, number 1, Michigan, number 9, and Wisconsin, number 21. 4 out of their last 5 duels been against top 25 programs. So, again, impressive what Mark Manning, again, does, as always, over there at Devaney. And then shifting gears just to high school, of course, we're going to have a huge temperature swing this week. Thankfully, it's going to come without any of the snow or rain because it is time for state basketball.
Right.
So is there anything you wanted to just throw out there, things you're looking forward to? It's girls first this week, then boys next week.
Yeah, so for those who aren't so privy on the high school basketball schedule, obviously if you've been watching the news, you've seen a ton of highlights, and you may not know, where they are in terms of the postseason. Monday and Tuesday of this week, it's one of the most strenuous weeks and exciting weeks for the sports department because Monday and Tuesday, it's the boys district finals. So the winners tonight and tomorrow, they all claim a spot in the NSAA 2024 Boys State Basketball Tournament. So that's the focus Monday, Tuesday. And then 9 a.m. Wednesday morning, so the quick turn, is the start of the Girls State Basketball Championships. And so there will be games going all throughout the day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, with all the finals on Saturday at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
And you've been covering, obviously, high school state sports for a long, long time. What would you say is your favorite thing about kind of this stretch, girls state, boys state, just covering it for all the years that you have?
My favorite thing, I'd go back 2 weeks and say the NSA State Wrestling Championships. Finals championship Saturday for the state wrestling meet is just, it's one of my favorites. I think that they do that event so well, and the visuals of it are awesome, and it's a great experience, and the place is packed. To answer your question about basketball, I don't know, Championship Saturday is kind of fun. The semifinal, they put Class A so they get the Friday night spotlight at PBA. And that'll be girls this Friday, boys next Friday. They usually have one semifinal at 6 o'clock and another semifinal at, I believe, 7:45. So if the weather's nice, go grab dinner in the rail yard, pop on over to PBA, and enjoy some really good basketball. Locally, the draws, if that's what you want to try to hear from me, if to get people excited about the state basketball championships. We don't know the boys bracket yet, but in the girls, Britt Prince, who's one of the best, or I guess highest rated prospects in Nebraska girls basketball history, top 30 nationally, signed with Nebraska. Her Elkhorn North team comes here as a 3-time defending state champion, only one loss on the year. That's in the Class B bracket. Go watch Britt Prince. She's pretty special. And then Class A, there's a lot of Lincoln flavor. There's 3 capital city teams, all from LPS. Lincoln North Star, Lincoln Southeast, Lincoln Southwest, all make the Class A bracket. And then Lincoln Christian is the favorite in Class C1.
All right. So, again, like Kevin said, it's going to be a really busy couple of weeks. We'll obviously have all the coverage, both of the high school, district finals, state championships, and then again all the Husker content, as well as the men and women get ready to wrap up their season over the next week or two. Kevin, as always, appreciate your time. I know you're going to be a busy guy the next couple of weeks. So again, until next time, well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Report Husker Show from 1011. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the Report on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011 Now app.